yeah! Sliding this boot off, you now get a really good view of that ball joint and actually what's going on up in there. The mounting surface looks really good. One really cool thing about these Moog ball joints is the boot. What that allows for is to drop straight into the hole and not have to worry about removing that boot or damaging it. And you can see that that is seated all the way up against the control arm. Well, today I'm doing ball joints. I'm gonna be doing the upper and lower ball joints on this 2005 Toyota 4Runner. Now, if you follow the channel, and I know you do, you would have recently seen me replace the front driver's side CV axle. This CV axle right here. Now, yes, the axle is in. I completed that job, but it did go a little sideways. Now, when I was trying to put everything back together, I realized that the bottom two holes on the knuckle that hold the bottom ball joint mount were completely stripped out. Those threads right there. You can see the CV axle going into the back of the hub, which is attached to the knuckle. And here you can see the bottom ball joint mount that bolts up to that hole right there in the bottom of the knuckle. Now, there are two holes, one here and one here. Both sides were stripped. And this arm you see right here that connects to the sway bar end link and also connects to the upper control arm ball joint, this is the top of that knuckle. Now, being that those bottom two holes were stripped out, there was no way I was gonna trust that to hold that bottom ball joint mount. And if I couldn't trust it, well, that could only mean one thing, that I would have to buy a brand new knuckle, and that's what I did. But that's not what today's video is about. Because I have to replace this knuckle, well, while I'm in there, I might as well replace the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint because I don't know if they've ever been changed, which means they potentially have 236,000 miles on them. And to do this job, I picked up a couple of Moog ball joints. And these things look really nice. And I did learn one thing. These are made in the USA. To get started, I'm gonna remove this sway bar end link from the knuckle. I have this set of needle nose locking pliers to grab onto the stud of the ball joint. Hopefully this will be enough to hold that so that I can loosen the nut over here. Sure was. All right, now I didn't damage the boot. Yeah. There we go. All right. One thing I want to be very mindful of is the boots on this brand new CV axle. So that way the boot isn't being stretched with this just hanging down, especially the inboard boot. I don't want to damage anything on the brand new CV axle. The next thing to do is disconnect this steering linkage from the knuckle. We do have a cotter pin here, so I'll bend that out of the way. There we go. And I'll go ahead and lube this up. Got that off. All right, next up, I'm trying this puller here. I have it at an extreme angle and it's not really on there all that well. I've got some pressure on there. Let's see if I can give it a few whacks. Woohoo! Well, the puller came through, that's good. Here's the steering linkage. Doesn't look too bad, it's not really corroded or anything. It was just really stuck in there. And now the only thing left is the upper ball joint. You can see this thing is completely free. We do have a cotter pin up here. So what happens if this ball joint ends up spinning? Let's try it. Yes! Castle nut removed. Why don't I be smart? That's what a smart person would do. This stubby is pretty awesome. Oh yeah, that is awesome. You can see our upper control arm, which also has our upper ball joint. And I have to remove this thing. The only problem with that is it's pressed in. These are pressed in ball joints, which means you need a specific tool, a ball joint press, to get them out and push the new one in. I don't own one of those. So what I did was went down to my local auto parts store where I rented one. This is the one I rented. And what's so cool about this is when I return it, I get all my money back. So it's essentially free. So let's see what's inside the box here. And look at that. This thing actually looks like almost brand new. It probably is brand new. I mean, that ball joint doesn't feel horrible. The boot is cracked. You can see it's borderline ready to fail. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually remove this boot. And looking at the two ball joints side by side, you can see a massive difference with the boot design. This Moog has a nice slim boot that we are not gonna have to remove for install. Whereas this one, I'm sure they had to remove it for install, and now I have to remove it again for uninstallation. And that's because this ball joint gets pressed up and out, and this boot will just simply get in the way. Okay, right up in here, you can see there's a metal kind of spring. So we need a pick that has a hook on it so we can get back under there. There we go. Now we can just simply pull. There we go. Now we can pull the boot straight off. So sliding this boot off all the way, we now get a really good view of that ball joint and actually what's going on up in there. Pretty simple, but pretty cool. And this is also why you should get a greasable ball joint as a replacement. You can see in this design that is not greasable, completely sealed when it was manufactured, a lot of that grease that is actually up in the joint falls down. And when the grease is down here on the stud, it's really not doing anything to lubricate that joint. And when you have a greasable design like this Moog unit I'm gonna be installing, you can always add more grease to the top. That grease also helps to flush out any sort of contaminants that may be in there, metal shavings, who knows what, and it's gonna keep this ball joint lasting a lot longer. I'm gonna wipe a lot of this stuff off. Now there is a C-clip up here that I have to get out. That doesn't seem like it's gonna be a problem at all. Yep, look at that, guys. You can see the end of this clip here. It is being removed from the groove there fairly easily. And there we go. This is the clip that's holding that thing from backing out. And looking up under here, you can see our control arm and you can see the ball joint that is pressed through the hole. We need to press that back up. Right now I'm going through the various bits and pieces here, trying to come up with a good plan to press this old ball joint out. So far I think the largest receiving tube is going to be the only one to work up here, though it's not perfect. I don't have a really good seat for it. It is the only one large enough to fit around this entire ball joint body, but it definitely doesn't have a flat surface to sit on. Oh, that's not gonna work. What am I thinking? It's too long. Well, I guess this isn't gonna work. This socket is just too long. Well, I absolutely had to cut that stud off. There was just no way with that stud there to be able to set up this tool to press that out. Okay, I got the cup in the right spot on top. Let's try this. Nope, just slip back down. Try to show you what's going on here. This cup is big enough to fit around that upper ball joint lip there, but it's actually way too big. It wants to self-center, and unfortunately with the design of the upper control arm, it's wanting to sit on top of the ball joint. You can see the cup is just on the ball joint there instead of being outside of it. And that's what I was trying to do is, you know, set it this way, but every time I tighten it down with any sort of torque, it recenters itself right on top of that ball joint. So I have to find a smaller cup. Check this out, guys. This cup right here came in this master kit. I just had to go to the parts store and get another master ball joint installer remover adapter set. This is the kind of add-on set that goes to that other kit that I rented earlier. So that other kit only has 3 different sized cups, none of which were working, but this has, you can see, a lot of different options. There's 2 options here that I think could work. This one here, but even cooler than that is this one with a cutout. And I was talking to the guy at the parts store and he was telling me that a lot of Toyota guys use these ones with the cutout for this exact problem that I'm having. Now this seems to work. It fits completely around. You can see the slot there at the front. I'm not going to be on the ball joint, so I should be able to press this out using just this cup. And because of this cutout, we should be able to see this thing coming out. I have this thing completely set up, as you can see, and hopefully we're going to be able to get it this time. I feel like I did see it moving. Let's keep going. Let's give it a couple of love taps here. All right. I got my breaker bar now. Holy moly, guys, this thing just blew up. Well, there's the ball joint. Well, I don't know if you caught that, but this thing rocketed straight up to the inside of that cup that I was using. That was actually pretty cool that we got to see that thing fly up because that cup was cut out, like a little window there. Well, here's the ball joint. It is out. I don't know why it was so tight in there. Maybe there was a little bit of corrosion. It looks like there's some black paint on there. Maybe it was just simply painted in. I'm gonna go ahead and say this was probably the original factory ball joint. Unless somebody knows otherwise, let me know. I don't know what those markings are on there, but for a 2005 Toyota 4Runner, is this what the factory ball joints look like? And there you can see the hole, no corrosion. This brown stuff right here, I think it's just a little dirt up here, but the hole there, the mounting surface looks really, really good. So before I install this ball joint, I want to put the little grease port in here. So I'll remove the plug. Now I touched on it earlier, but one really cool thing about these Moog ball joints is the boot. You can see the boot is very slim profile, and what that allows for is to drop straight into the hole and not have to worry about removing that boot or damaging it. Now I'll just find the correct cup situation with the press in order to press this ball joint in. All right, and this is the situation I came up with. I have this large socket here on the bottom, which does have a little window for me, and I have this smaller cup on top, and the smaller cup is only pressing on the outer diameter of that ball joint. And just for clarity, this cup is only touching the control arm. So with that set up, hopefully correctly, all I can do is give it a shot and see if we can press that ball joint in. All right, I'm gonna go back to my impact here. All right, looks like we're going back to the breaker bar. And I do see it pressing in, so that's a good sign. That might be it. So looking at the top here, this portion of metal is the actual ball joint. And you can see that that is seated all the way up against the control arm, all the way around too, so that's good. Now that I've removed everything, you can clearly see this is fully seated. And looking underneath, you can see that it is totally even as well. And now I'm gonna install this new snap ring that's included in the ball joint kit. And that snap ring goes in this groove right here. I'm trying very hard to not mess up that boot. Okay, there we go. Yep, okay, seems perfect. That's exactly what I want. I want those ears kind of pointed with the opening here so that it's easy if I ever need to take this off in the future. Well, all right, after a whole bunch of effort, removing the knuckle and everything else, I finally got that new upper ball joint pressed in. This is how we roll over here in the One Road garage. I kind of sort of always have a plan put together, but you know what happens when you get punched in the face? And that's what happened to me today. I was having some trouble trying to get this ball joint out. I rented the ball joint press, the kit, and I thought that that would be everything I needed in there. You know, they had a cup that did fit around that upper ball joint, the top lip there, but I was having an issue with the way it sat onto the control arm itself. So then I did some research, looked at other rental tools at other auto shops, and I went back to the same one which I went to the first time and got this extended kit with all these extra cups. And the guy behind the counter said one thing, one bit of information before I was about to just walk out, return the other rental thing, and buy new control arms. He goes, you know, a lot of the Toyota guys use these cups with the cutouts for specifically the reason you're talking about. And I couldn't believe how genius that was. If he didn't say that, I was about to leave, thinking because I took my calipers and everything and measured everything, and none of the cups were the right size to fit in the groove, into the control arm and everything. So once he said that about the cutout, the light bulb went off in my head and I went, that's the answer. That's how I'm gonna get this thing out. So of course I measured it up and kind of found sort of two options, but ultimately it was this one that worked. And it worked in somewhat of an explosive way. That was crazy. Obviously we have two ball joints to get to, and I just finally completed the upper ball joint. It's complete. I really, really like this Moog ball joint. I like how slim that boot is. I didn't have to worry about taking it off and then pressing the joint in and then putting the boot back on. They designed it on purpose like that. I'll put the link down in the description below for this ball joint. But because this was actually such a big job, and probably a decently long video, I'm actually gonna cut this one right here. And the very next video will be this lower ball joint, which I'm gonna start on right here, right now, after I cut with you guys. So don't worry, the lower ball joint video is on the channel. If you're seeing this video, which is the upper ball joint, you'll know that I did this first, and the lower ball joint came right after. So I'm gonna get started on this lower ball joint, and I'm hoping it goes a little easier and smoother than the upper ball joint did, but we'll see, I guess. You know, actually, anytime I have big issues like that, it actually leads to a better video, I feel like, because the video gets to show the adversity, the problems that I'm having to work through, and how I was able to solve them. So I kind of can't wait to get started on this. And so if you like this video, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It really helps not only this video, but the whole channel as well. And if you've watched this far and you're not a subscriber to One Road here on YouTube, there's lots of content like this. Consider subscribing. I'm Jimmy for One Road, and I will see you in the next one.